Today, we're going to take a trip from old-school 19th century law all the way to the code-driven contracts that are literally running our world tomorrow. Our goal? To unpack those powerful, often totally invisible agreements that, shape our digital lives every single day.
I mean, think about it. How many times a week do you click that little I agree button? Hundreds, probably thousands of times a year. But have you ever stopped to think about what's actually happening in that moment? When does that simple click cross the line and become a real legally binding contract? That's the big question we're digging into.
So, to really get a handle on our digital world today, we've got to go back, way back. We're talking about an era of ink, paper, and snail mail that was, well, actually as slow as a snail.
And you know what's wild? These ideas go back way further than you'd probably guess. We're talking 1818. Courts back then were dealing with a brand new problem. How in the world do you make a contract when the two people involved are days apart, by horseback? The answer they came up with, from a case called Adams v. Lindsell, literally set the stage for contract law for the next 200 years.
And that solution? They called it the Mailbox rule. It's pretty simple, really. It basically said that your acceptance of an offer was legally binding the instant you dropped that letter in the mail. It didn't matter if the letter got lost or took weeks to get there. The deal was done. All the risk of that communication failing, it was on the person who made the offer in the first place, not the one who accepted it. This was a huge deal because it protected the sender, right? They could move on and act like they had a deal immediately.
And for more than 150 years, that rule just worked. It was the standard. But then, of course, a little thing called the internet came along and changed absolutely everything. And the law? Well, it had to play a frantic game of catch-up.
Okay, so fast forward to the year 2000. This was a massive turning point. The US government passed something called the E-Sign Act. Now that's short for a much longer name, but all you need to know is this. This single piece of legislation became the legal bedrock for pretty much every digital transaction you make. It's the reason e-commerce could explode, because it created the trust the whole system needed.
And it all really boils down to this one powerful sentence. Essentially, it says, a contract is a contract. Doesn't matter if you signed it with a feather pen or with a click of a mouse, your digital signature, that email you sent, that I agree button you just clicked, this law is what gives all of that its real legal teeth.
But here's the thing. E-Sign wasn't just a green light for businesses. It also built in some really important protections for you, the consumer. I mean, a company can't just flip you over to paperless billing without you saying yes loud and clear. They have to tell you how to get paper copies, how to back out, and even what kind of software you'll need. And that last part is so important. You actually have to prove you can open their documents. That's why sometimes you have to, click a special link or open a test PDF before you can officially agree. It's all to protect you.
Okay, so e-sign comes along and makes digital contracts totally legit. Awesome. But it left one giant, gaping question wide open. It created this huge clash between the old world of snail mail and the new world of the internet. And that question was, when exactly is an email considered accepted?
And this is really the heart of the debate. Do we stick with the old mailbox or dispatch rule where the contract is a done deal the moment you hit send? Or do we need a new receipt rule for our instantaneous world where the contract only kicks in when the other person actually receives the email? Just look at the difference there and who's taking on the risk. This is one of the biggest legal arguments of our time.
So, the folks who are all in for the new receipt rule, they're basically saying the old rule is just obsolete. It's a relic. Their first big argument is this. Think back to why the mailbox rule was even created. It was to protect the person accepting the offer, right? To save them from being stuck in limbo for days or even weeks. With email, that problem is gone. Poof, your message gets there in seconds. The whole risk calculation has completely changed.
All right, argument number 2. This whole classic idea of a single meeting of the minds, where two people agree at the exact same moment. It's kind of a myth in today's world. I mean, just think about the last time you installed some software. It's a whole process, right? You buy it, you open it, you start the installation, and then you finally see the terms. It's not one single moment. It's a rolling process that just doesn't fit into that neat old-fashioned box. And the third and final argument is just plain practical. Back in the 1800s, you sent a letter and just hoped for the best. You had zero proof it ever got there. But today, come on. We have server logs. We have delivery confirmations. We even have those pesky read receipts. The technology itself has completely solved the problem of proof that the mailbox rule was originally designed to fix. We know when the message arrives.
So this whole debate about when a contract is officially formed is super interesting, right? But here's the twist. Technology has already taken another giant leap forward. We're moving beyond just forming contracts. Now we're talking about making contracts that can automatically enforce themselves.
And that brings us to the famous smart contract. Now, this isn't your typical legal document that lawyers argue over later. With a smart contract, the contract is the code. It's an agreement that's designed to execute itself automatically once certain conditions are met. And yeah, this is the core technology that makes things like the blockchain possible.
You know, the best way to understand a smart contract is actually something that's been around forever, a vending machine. It's a perfect analogy. The offer is coded right into the machine, 1 soda for $2. You meet the condition by putting your $2 in, and the performance? It's totally automatic. The machine checks the money and spits out your soda. No lawyers, no judges, no arguments, just code doing its thing.
Okay, a vending machine is a pretty low-stakes example, right? But what happens when you take that same logic, that same self-enforcing code, and apply it to way more complex, high-stakes stuff? What happens when code isn't just like the law, but it actually becomes the law?
And yeah, this is where things get really, really messy. Because code is just code. It's rigid. It follows the rules no matter what. It doesn't understand things like fairness or mercy or context. So what happens when you have a contract that's totally unfair, maybe even predatory, but the code is written to enforce it perfectly, without any hesitation?
And listen, this is not some far-off sci-fi future. This is happening right now. There are these devices called starter interrupters. Lenders put them in the cars of people with subprime loans. And if you're even a single day late on your payment, boom, the lender can remotely disable your car's engine. It won't start. It's a real-life smart contract, and it executes the penalty automatically.
And this is where the code smashes right into the law. For decades, we've had laws that say you can't breach the peace when you repossess a car. But what about disabling a car remotely while someone's at the hospital? Is that a breach of the peace? And there's more. When a person files for bankruptcy, there's something called an automatic stay that's supposed to protect their property. But a starter interrupter that just shuts off the car anyway, that could be a direct violation of federal law.
So let's just step back for a second and think about the big picture. For centuries, our agreements, our promises, have always been enforced by people. You had judges, you had courts, you had lawyers.
While that entire system is now fundamentally changing. For the first time in history, those same agreements can be enforced, not by people, but inflexibly and automatically by lines of code.
And that leaves us with a really big, profound question to chew on. Our legal system has always had these little safety valves built in, right? Things like mercy and fairness, ways to make sure that rigid rules don't lead to horrible outcomes. But if that next I agree button you click locks you into a contract that a human can't break, a contract that can only be enforced by unforgiving code, what happens to those essential human values?